Hello, this is National Chess Master R. Rats here to continue my video blog series of the team match between Army of Brotherhood and my free video lessons group. The match score currently stands at 23.5 to 20.5 in favor of the Army, and it's going to go up by 6 points for the Army because I believe 3 of my team have been banned for cheating. See this little cheating icon right here? That means you're going to time out in your games. You won't be able to play. So what can I say? This seems to happen every team event. Usually 1 or 2 players or more from both teams get bounced. Let's not worry about that. It's just part of the game. Hopefully you guys will learn. Anyway, let's go down to the bottom. I know there's some results down here near the bottom. I'll get them all. This one in here, this one will epitomize the... I've actually already got this loaded up. Let me bring it up. Here it is. This will epitomize the idea that you can't play fast when you play internet chess, okay, online chess. You have to slow down. I'm sure at some point White was just taking seconds a move. And, you know, so far so book in a Roy Lopez. I don't know where it diverges from book. That's you guys. You're supposed to look these things up. And I mentioned on the last video, maybe people don't own chess books like they used to, where you can look openings up. Well, Modern Chess Openings, 15th edition, Google it. I'll put a link to order it. It'll get you through a lot. Or if you're a premium member at chess.com, you can use the Opening Explorer. Or just Google a free online chess database and find some moves and have some fun. You probably have to register for some of those. Just takes an email, but so what? You can do it. Anyway, at this point, White kind of starts downhill. I guess he looks at this bishop and he doesn't see where it can go. It can't go to g5. It can't go to f4. It could go to e3, but gets traded off. It could go to d2, and he doesn't like it there, I guess. So he thinks, well, fianchetto it. I mean, I'm just trying to think what goes through White's head. So he could play b3 right now if he wanted to find fianchetto, but there's a problem with that. We'll see that in just a moment. But he picks a3 first, okay? I'm trying to figure out what he's trying to do with a3. And it becomes apparent here in a moment. b4. Oops. Free piece, okay? So there's really not much to this video, but, you know, basically Black has a completely won game now. And White's not done hanging material, so I'm going to go through this kind of quick and move on to the next one. A little bit of trading. Black is completely winning, a piece ahead. And just kind of watch what happens. Whoops, that unprotected the knight on e5. So Black throws this move at White and then picks off the piece. And guess what? White's not done giving away material. Whoops, there goes the knight. I guess it was a fork. And game over. White resigns. Okay, so lesson: you can't play fast in chess. I mean, just about half these games, there have been some gross blunders just because somebody moved too quick. And when you have 3 days to move, how can you play a move that loses a piece? And so I'm calling you guys out. Okay. My program says, you signed up to join my free video lessons course, and video lesson 1 spells it out. Take 3 hours per move. Okay? 3 hours. That's the recommendation of World's Correspondence Champion Hans Berliner. He won the World's Correspondence Championship. Okay? You think he knows what he's talking about? I tended to take longer when I was playing master class postal chess. I'd take days because a little different time control. 10 moves every 30 days. So you could sit there for 12 days on a move before your penalty would kick in. Okay, so enough of that. The next 2 games are kind of interesting. I've already looked at one. Let's see this one here. This should have been a win for my team, but we'll see what my teammate was doing wrong. I'm not so sure it was moving fast, although it was part of it. Some of it's just an exercise in judgment. White achieves a completely winning game here, and well, we'll see when we get there. Okay, now d6 is a bad move. Just take on d4, because if White takes back on d4, Black develops his knight and tempos the queen. And White can play the Danish Gambit if he wants, but Black has ways of equalizing against that. So this basically allows white to take away black's castling privileges. And inexplicably, white gives black the chance to do it. Now, the correct move here is queen takes d8 check. Yeah, the queen's come off. Yeah, the game's reasonably even. But white's going to be a little bit ahead in development because black cannot castle. And white plays knight f3. Now, black should play queen takes d1 check. But nope. He puts his knight on d7 to avoid a queen trade. Okay, fine. Anyway, let's move on. Now, suddenly, white's got some potential pressure with queen d5, and we've seen that in the last video where some of that happened, but it's just not here. Let's kind of move along here. They're developing. Now, this is kind of a waste because this is a threat that black can deal with. You know, it's Dan Heisman has his version of hope chess. I have my version of hope chess. My hope chess says, I hope my opponent doesn't see that I'm going to capture that pawn on f7. I hope, hope. Whoops, your hope is gone. Okay. Now, black's kind of wasting time. I think he had a free pawn sitting there, but he didn't take it. I mean, this game is just something. Now, this allows a tactic, which white is alert to. If you're going to play this knight over, you need to make sure it's secure because of this little trick, winning a pawn. And now look at the poor queen. Where does it go? Well, it goes and takes a piece. So black's just gifted white a piece. Just like we saw in the last game, a piece has been dropped. Yet black is going to win this game. And we'll see why here in a little bit. Okay, so now white sees that there's a mate threat. If he plays h3, that bishop may very well sacrifice itself. So he stops the mate. And he doesn't like that bishop on that b8 h2 diagonal, so he shuts it off. And he doesn't like the possibility of that bishop getting into f3, so he kicks it out. And, you know, reasonable moves by white. He's a piece up. But there's one thing white needs to do now, is get that queen side developed. Because even though white's a piece ahead, without those pieces in play, he's a piece down. Because both sides haven't developed a few things on the queen side. So let's count what's developed. Both sides have a rook in play. Both sides have a queen. White has one bishop. Black has two. So even though white's a piece ahead, as far as the game goes, he's a piece down. So you've got to kind of have to change your thinking a little bit sometimes and recognize that you need your entire army. So anyway, white's able to liquidate another piece, but this opens up a line for black, and that's going to come into effect here. Now, this is the point where all white has to do is just develop his pieces, and the game will be his in just probably 10-15 moves, because black will have no answer for being a piece down. White doesn't need to collect more pawns, but yet that's what he starts doing. This is where white starts going wrong. He's trying to eliminate the entire black army. And he gets rid of some of it, but just watch what happens, because he keeps it up. There was no need to grab the pawn. Develop the pieces. Now, as I say, in effect, black is actually a rook and a bishop ahead now, because these pieces haven't come into play. A1, B1, C1. Black's got two rooks and a bishop and a queen. White has a rook and a queen. White's down a rook and a bishop. I don't care what you see back here. Until these guys come into play, white's in trouble. And white stops and collects another pawn. And black allows white to trade one of his off, but he doesn't do it. This is a perfect time to take it. It gets rid of a piece off the back rank and gets ready to develop the knight. Even though it might have to go to a3, at least that's white's piece ahead, and white has collected 3 pawns. But anyway, he doesn't. He kicks the bishop. But I guess that's good in a way because it wins another piece. But, you know, there was nothing wrong. You don't have to be up the world here. Just be happy with what you got. But now white's 2 pieces up. So we can say, okay, white played a good move. But I'm kind of leading you to one important fact. You don't need to be up the world. You're up enough. Consolidate. Get this queen, knight, and rook in the game. Okay, so white saves his piece. This would have been a perfect time, and it was the perfect time to just give the piece back. Okay, it was time to develop the knight, even if it went to a3. Give it back. Okay, just simply give it back. Or bring the queen back to c4. Let him take, but white has to be a little bit careful here. Because black does starting to get some activity. Why? Because he's got rooks on open files and an aggressive queen with a decent diagonal. But in effect, white's down the exchange here. So watch what happens. Bishop e3, and then bang, a check. White has two legal moves, but one of them doesn't look too appetizing. King g2 allows queen f3 check, and the king is headed out. Imagine black probably can work out a checkmate here if he's careful. I'll back up. I'll look at this in a second. Now comes another check, and now the white's in trouble because there's only one legal move, and that allows a mate in one. Whoops! So that's what happens when you get too greedy. Let's back it up and see if white had any kind of choice. Okay, I guess he had to play there, but now black has a rook for two minor pieces and the attack. White needs to come out. Now, I suppose black has at least a draw here if they repeat with queen check, king g2. And, that's kind of embarrassing for white to have to admit that he's got a draw. Since white's not active in any way, shape, or form, black could just save his rook and let white try to figure out what to do next. See, now white can't develop his knight. He's going to drop his rook, and then suddenly he's down two exchanges. That's a big material difference. Black, I didn't notice I'd even talk about this bishop being loose because black had to swing the rook over. But, let's see. Does black have a checkmate in here? Not necessarily, but hey, let's drive the king forward. Where's this king going to go next? Black's out of checks, but that king's pretty shaky. Black's planning to play rook h1 and rook takes mate. So let's see. Since white's grabbing material, let's go threaten mate in the rook. Okay, now what? Well, let's come over here. Now we're trying to get into the H-file. Does white have anything? Well, he's trying. But once again, white's down material, and white didn't have to allow all this. So, coming back to this move, F4 just forced black to sacrifice a piece. Just take this. Take it. Okay? How are you going to take back? Let's take back with the pawn. Keep the queen on a diagonal. Now this knight's restricted. It has to go to the side of the board, but amen, the rooks are connected. Well, watch out. Black's got some play here. If rook f2, rook takes, king takes, queen takes h2 check, king e3. Looks like white's going to escape the checks. But it goes back even further when white was collecting pawns. He doesn't need to win this pawn on b7. Simple, safe, solid. Bishop e3. What's black do? Well, put a rook on the open file. Okay, let's develop the knight. Now what does black do? Oh, let's go bother the pawn. Okay, fine. I'll safeguard it. Even though the king side's exposed, what's black do? Well, let's try and pry him open. Well, fine. Let's see. I'll look for some trades. Now I'm trying to trade your rook off. Okay. If you take back with the pawn, I'll take back on g5 with the pawn. I'll trade rooks here, and win this pawn. So black's just trying to pry open lines, but white's getting wood off. Boom. Let's get rid of that. And I think now white can afford to take this pawn. That's a much better pawn to be ahead rather than these queenside pawns, because you're collecting the queenside pawns with the idea of making a queen. White never even pushed those pawns. What does black do here? Black's running out of ideas. He's running out of material to do anything with. Queen h3. The idea to stick this rook on h5 and try to checkmate poor white. Okay, so I imagine white has solutions to this. Let's try knight f3. That covers h2. Well, what's black do? He can't. Let's go ahead and play rook h5. Well, bang, check. Okay, I got h2 covered, and I'm checking you. You can't go in the corner. You get mated. Now I'm going to check you again. And who knows? There's probably better moves in here for white. And now, since you have no threat, I'm going to cut off your king's flight square. Notice how this rook's coming in the game. Now let's burn a move for black, just for the fun of it. Check. Okay, now, hey, there you go. How about bishop c5? And white's the one attacking, not black. Okay, so that should have been a win for Habish, but you didn't do it. Let's look at the other game. They've completed the other one too. And, oops, I went too far, went the wrong way. Let's go into my profile. Let's go back to, will that do it? Well, I'm not sure. Come on, let's go. I'll just click that. So they finished another game. Let's look at that one. And we'll see what else was on tap. So here, Habish got up the world too, but he didn't manage to lose. But let's see what this one turns out like. Okay, Queen's Gambit accepted. Now it looks like black is trying to hold on to the pawn. So we definitely have a material hoarder on our hands here. Not a good idea. All white has to do is develop, a4. Start attacking. Well, no, a3. The theme is to play a4 and break this apart. So black definitely sees material and he wants to get as much of it as he can. This is kind of how I used to play. I'd win a pawn, think I was winning, and just try to trade down to a winning ending. And oh, look at this, h6, weakening the king side. Okay, not a good move. What was white going to put on g5 that you needed to worry about? The answer is nothing. Okay, you've got to develop your pieces. So let's see what white does. White develops a piece. And now black gets ready to develop. And moving a piece twice in the opening, not the smartest move. Okay, good. Develop, castle. And white sees a pawn and he takes it. That's we saw that last game. He likes pawns. Now, this seems to be kind of a crazy attack. That's something we just saw in the first game here. White went and attacked f7, hoping your opponent doesn't see it. Well, what if black just castles? And he does. Okay, so white brings another piece into the equation. Now black captures on c3. So he's giving up. Looks like, is black losing a piece here? My goodness. What if white just takes the knight? Okay, what am I missing? What's the boomerang? Black, you just lost a piece. Okay, so you should have lost this. Should have won the other game. You should have lost this one. I guess these things even out. Okay, queen f3. There's pressure on this knight. How are we going to guard it? F5? I guess you have to play F5. Or counterattack the knight with F6. That doesn't seem to do anything, because the knight will just weaken the king side here. See, some of this goes back to this H6 move. Why I said it was a mistake. It also weakens G6. So if black plays F5, which I think he needs to play, white has a nice square to put his knight. And that's not available if you don't play h6. Whoops, I'm hitting the wrong buttons. Let's go forward. Okay, so somehow white manages to lose this. Well, why? Why this move? What's wrong with taking the piece? I don't understand. Why not take the piece? What am I missing? I don't think I'm missing anything. Just take the knight, right? Pawn takes. Your tempo on the bishop, you're a piece ahead. My goodness. Okay, so both sides are quite guilty of not taking their time. So black has saved his piece. Now this gives up a pawn with check. But white doesn't take it. What's wrong with queen takes e6 check? Okay. If you put rook f7, you lose the rook, so the king has to move. They're playing too quick. That could be the only solution. So black starts rolling his pawns forward. Now white decides not to win the pawn back. So c4 will secure that pawn on the... my goodness, what are these guys doing? I mean, I'm trying to help you play. Take on c5 and then collect the pawn on d3. There's no reason to allow black an advance past pawn like that. Now this weakens the white king side for an attack on the queen, which is easily met. Now this is interesting. This is a bad exchange. Look at the four rooks. Both sides have an active rook on the F file. Both sides have a passive rook on the A file. After this exchange, in effect, what's happened is white's traded his active rook for black's passive rook. This follows the rule of Nimzowitsch: don't make exchanges that develop your opponent's pieces. Let them make exchanges that develop your pieces. So it'd be better for black if he just waited to see if black would take on f1, and the rook can take back on f1, and all is well for white. Well, it's not all entirely well, but at least you don't start creating opportunities for your opponent. Okay, so queen g4, queen f6. Now suddenly black has threats on the open file. If white plays queen e6 check, that gets the queens off, but his e6 pawn is weak and probably going to be lost. So he brings the queen back. Black gets a check in, which wins a piece, by the way. Hello. See, now this wouldn't have happened had white not traded on f8. Okay? So basically white's creating opportunities for black. Now the 7th rank is loose. I guess queen h5 was probably the only move to defend h2, but it's not. Now why doesn't black take the pawn on h2 with check? My goodness. Okay, am I wrong? Isn't this mate in 2? I'll come back. He gets a mate here in a minute. Whoops, going the wrong way. But, okay, takes. Oh, he wanted that. He wanted the rook. He was attacking the rook. But we know black likes to collect pawns, but so his move isn't bad in the respect that it was still winning. But what's wrong with a mate in 2? Oh, I'm not even the analysis board. My bad. Okay. Laugh at me all you want. I don't care. I love what I'm doing. Okay. I was just discussing things rather than playing them out. I'm trying to get as many games as I can on here because some of these really don't need much comment. Okay, so what was wrong with rook takes check? What does white do? White has one legal move, and that's it. And I do believe that's checkmate, isn't it? It says checkmate on the score sheet here. Clearly, moving too quick. That's what's wrong. Okay, interesting game for both sides. You both lost winning games. You both could have won them both. Goes for both of you. Okay, you both had wins. and you didn't deliver. So let's scroll down and see what else has come. You know, not the last 15 boards or so, my team has a nice rating advantage. I guess they're overconfident. Look at this. We're losing them all up until Habibsh. And then finally no Chewy Candy. Got a couple wins. Now let's see. Yeah, we got that one earlier today. And I think we got, oh yeah, we got both those games. I have room for one more game on this video. We got no Chewy Candy. I know there's games up near the top, and some of them are kind of old. But I think we can get plenty of instruction value if we find these quick wins and throw them on here. Now let's see. This one is new, I think. Looks like they're both winding down. Maybe I'll come back on this one, try to determine which one ended. Okay, let's see. I don't see Black's Queen anywhere. That one could have been resigned. Let's see. Let's take a look and see if that's the one that was resigned. Yeah. What went wrong here? How does... Well, he's got a rook and a knight for the queen, but then White's got a bunch of pawns too. Let's take a quick look at this one. You know, 28 moves in 10 days. They're moving too quick. Okay. Oh, there. Look at this move. Okay, h6. This move does absolutely nothing. Okay, except weaken g6 and fall you behind in development. I see so many players play these rook pawns up one square to keep pieces out of g5. Well, oh, I'm afraid of that knight going to g5. Well, you know what? e6 shuts off the diagonal of the bishop. So h6, bad move. Okay. Now this gives White a nice hole on d5. It's a commitment made kind of early. Why give White a key square that he can occupy? Now White's not really ready to get in there yet, but he can be with maneuvering. Knight to a3 to c2 to e3 to d5. Knight to e1 to c2 to e3, backs up the knight on d5. Permanent outpost for White. Okay. Up a6. Now it's thematic in a lot of Sicilian type positions because Black wants to expand. So we'll forgive him for shoving the rook pawn here. White goes ahead and takes the key square now, though that might have been premature because now when Black takes, you no longer have that square open. It tempos the knight, but it may not be the best square for the knight. Certainly doesn't look right. E7 keeps it towards the center more, and Black doesn't need to fear a pawn to d6. Then it'll just come up to f5, and you'll collect that pawn. So e7 would have been a better square, and then you gain a tempo on the pawn. You're pressuring it. So, but he didn't play it. But White collects this pawn, so that was his plan. I guess that was... Oh, there we go. When I make these videos, I have a... There we go. I'm there. I hear my voice again. Apologies. And there's no point in stopping and starting over with this. So White won a pawn. So we'll say that this is okay for White that he did that. I didn't catch the pawn win. So I didn't like, my first instinct is don't give up the key square, but then, you analyze, you take it forward and you find out you can. Tactics will win out over solid positional ideas. Here, white won a pawn in return for giving up his key square. So now black's the one with a possible break of a4. And white's getting his pieces out. Black starts redeploying the knight, but that knight's going to have his work cut out. D6 and E7 are out of the question. Unless all that bishop redeploys, or the knight can go to B6 and D7, and then he can get back to F6. It's one of the drawbacks of sticking over there on A7. Now I guess black's afraid of a sacrifice. I don't know if that had merit. Might have. And now both sides have weak pawns on the queen side. Black decides to start counterattacking. Weakens his king position a little bit. Oh, interesting move. One I certainly didn't expect. Is it sound? Well, how do you determine if a sacrifice is sound? You analyze. Now, first question is, before we analyze the sacrifice, what if black just moves his king? Okay, if black just moves his king, white's going to get knight e6 in and win material, right? So when you're analyzing a sacrifice like this, that's the easy part. You say if he moves the king, I win by putting knight e6. Now comes the hard part. What if black accepts the sacrifice? And that's what he does. So we'll see if the sacrifice was sound here in a moment. Now, the first question that comes to my mind is, what if black just moves the king again? Well, you say white plays knight e6. Okay, fine. But the net result is black's going to have two minor pieces for the rook, and white's running out of attacking ideas. So let's see what happens here. Here, black's ahead a piece. Is that enough? My first instinct is no. My first instinct is this is premature, but we'll see. The rook on a3 is out of play. The rook on f1 can get into play. It's up to black to prove that he can wiggle out of this. Now, knight e7 is going to run into a pin, rook e1. Then black has to get tangled up a little bit with rook f7. So rook h8, and whoops, hit that thing twice. Now, the biggest problem for black is getting his queenside pieces in the game. He can't bring the knight to e7 now. So to some degree, this sacrifice is paying off. We'll come back and look at this in a minute because the game's rapidly winding down. Black ends up getting his queen trapped here, I guess. That's how he lost the queen for a rook. And here it comes. But does black have to... Yeah, he has to give up. It's pinned. And here black decided to resign. He sees queen c7 is coming in. So my gut feeling is black was better in this. But I could be wrong. You find out by analyzing. And that's what a good thing about online chess. You can examine all the lines, and the entire question is, can black accept this sacrifice and come out ahead? Okay, so let's back it up just a wee bit more. Okay, now first off, black's trying to hold on to as much as he can, so maybe that's a mistake. Now, putting the queen on e8 ended up getting it tempoed, so let's try queen d7 instead. Okay, now white's going to need to bring pieces in play. He played f4. Maybe his idea is to bring the rook up and over. But black, this gives black a chance to play knight e7, and this knight doesn't get pinned. So if white now tries rook f3, for what it's worth, the knight can get to g6. And white can get a check. And white can threaten to transfer the queen over. But the entire question is this enough? Uh, is this enough to hold? Let's create some air for the king, tempo the queen. Now let's try queen f7. That allows a check here. Now it's interesting. Queen checks. We're sacrificing the queen with a purpose here, because now black has to give the queen. But there's a drawback here. The drawback is white's down a rook. That's the drawback. So if this line holds up, and I invite both the white and black players to examine this further, this appears to be a defense. Now white may have other lines, and that's where you explore a postal chess game. You get in here and you tear this thing apart. Black had one other alternative that I think is worth mentioning, and then we'll call it a video. And that was not to try to stay up a piece, but to return some material. Okay, let's play king back. Okay, now, well, let's put him on g8. I just don't want to run into a potential check on h5. Now, there's no saying white's going to play knight e6. White might try to play queen e2 with the idea queen h5 and then trying to administer a mate, but maybe black has time to play queen e8. Let's say that knight e6 was his plan. Now we move the queen. And the difference here is black has an extra bishop defending things. He doesn't have that extra rook, but he's got an extra bishop. And I think that makes a big difference. Count the pieces. Black has 5 of them. A rook, 2 bishops, a knight, and a queen. White only has 4 of them. And the rook on a3 is not helping. This bishop didn't get into play with a recapture. I don't think white has enough compensation here. I think in the long run, black is going to grind white down. So black had 2 alternatives. But I could be wrong. You know, I'm not out here to do perfection and say that with absolute certainty that white was winning. My judgment overall, for the most part, even though I'll miss a line here and there, my judgment overall is going to be accurate. You're going to have to just prove that you can, white can win this, and you do it by analysis. And black had 2 legitimate alternatives. Black chose the greediest one to be a piece ahead, and then black didn't defend it well at all. Okay, so good game by SurfDoc. You made a very, very interesting sacrifice. It paid off. What can I say? Congratulations. I mean, we're not asking for perfection down here. We want to see your game. I want to see your game. I want to talk about it and share with you. So, because the whole desire is, can you guys improve? I mean, just think, if everybody I was teaching chess to got as good or as better than me, just think how much chess I could learn from you guys. I look forward to that. All right. Hey, thanks so much for your time. I'll be back again with another video soon. Take care.